Going guys, my name's Graham and welcome to Two Left Thumbs. Today I'm here to do a fan casting video for the MCU version of Spider-Man. Now I already did one for X-Men and Fantastic Four following that Disney acquisition of Fox. That one kind of made sense to do. It's kind of like a dream scenario sort of thing. Here we already have Spider-Man in the MCU, so I'm obviously not going to cast the characters that already exist. And I'm also going to pretend that Sony isn't trying to do their own Venomverse, Spider-verse, whatever the fuck it is, where Tom Hardy's Venom and they're going to make a Black Cat and Silver Sable movie, and those aren't even cast yet or anything, and they want to make Mysterio and Kraven. For the sake of this video, pretend that that stuff's not happening and that these characters are fully usable by Marvel and that we will someday see them in the MCU. So the three main points here: I'm not going to recast anyone who's already cast, I'm going to ignore the Sony movies, and basically I'm limited to casting people that we've all heard of. Marvel and Disney have proven themselves to be really good at finding new talent, so I imagine in the final result, a lot of these castings are going to be actors and actresses that you've never heard of before, so most of my picks probably aren't going to end up being correct because they'll probably find new talent. I came up with as many of these as I could on my own, but I also perused as many fan casting lists as I could find, because sometimes you're just stuck and you just can't think of one on your own, so it was really helpful to look at other people's lists. This is going to be a long list, so bear with me. First, I'm going to quickly rattle off the characters that have already been cast. So we already have Spider-Man, Aunt May, Ned, Flash Thompson, kind of MJ. They're being kind of coy about that one. I think Mary Jane properly will show up at some point, but for now let's say MJ's cast. Betty Brant, although I can't even honestly remember her role in the movie at all. And for villains, we already have Vulture, Shocker, the Tinkerer, Scorpion, kind of the Prowler, there's some potential there. And I would also say Kingpin, because if they're going to bring in Kingpin, just use the Daredevil version. So that's who we have already. It's not worth recasting them, I'm not going to go into it. Now I'm going to start moving into more of the villain characters. I might as well start with Eddie Brock. Now it really depends what they want to do here. Do they want Eddie to be the same age as Spider-Man? And if they do that, they should probably wait like 5 years until he's after high school. Or do they want him to be older than Peter? Then they can do it right away if they want to, but I think they probably should put it off. But I picked kind of an older and a younger pick here, depending which way they want to go, and even then, if they put it off for like 5 or 6 years, there'll probably be a new actor who would be better suited. So it's a tough one. It sucks because Tom Hardy would be one of my top choices for Eddie Brock, but let's pretend that that's not happening. And for the older version, I would go Liam McIntyre, and the younger, I would go Josh Hutcherson. I haven't really seen Josh as a villain, but I do like him as an actor, and I think that could be really cool. Next, I'm going to move into the Sinister Six, as assembled by Dr. Octopus. It is going to be nearly impossible to replace Alfred Molina. He was so damn good in Spider-Man 2. He's probably largely the reason that's still considered one of the best superhero movies of all time, in certain circles. I don't want to get into that whole debate. A lot of people have said Jared Harris, and I could totally get behind that, but my top pick right now is Mark Hamill. Doc Ock is kind of an older villain, so you can get an older actor like that, but you might want to do it quick. But then it also sucks because you probably don't want Spider-Man 2 to be Doc Ock again. You don't really want to repeat that. I would love to see what Mark Hamill would do with that, but I think it's unlikely to see that happen. My initial picks for Sandman were either Michael C. Hall or Ethan Hawke. I would like to see what either of those actors would do with that, going in two very different directions. But one particular compelling fan casting had Clive Standen, and I was thoroughly convinced through that. He is now my number one pick. Mysterio, this one I had a ton of trouble with. He should be like kind of a badass, but like very theatrical and showy. Maybe a little bit of like vulnerable. There needs to be a lot of layers to this character. Someone had suggested Arnold Vosloo, and I thought that was pretty intriguing. I debated between Nick Cage and Cillian Murphy. I think Nick would bring a weirdness to the character that would be really great. Cillian would have a more seriousness to the character, which would be really great. I want to see Alan Tudyk. The guy can play anything, he's an outstanding voice actor. I think he could sell this character maybe better than anyone. I had trouble with Electro, I don't really know where to go with that one. It could almost be anyone. I think I would go with Aaron Paul. I think he would fit well into the universe somewhere, maybe as like a minor villain. I think this would be a good slot for him. He was actually my pick for something else, but he got bumped down, and I still wanted to find a place for him. For Kraven the Hunter, people have commonly been pointing at Javier Bardem. My top choice is Gerard Butler. I can see the appeal of Javier, but I kind of loved Gerard in 300 and have always wanted to see him make a strong comeback. He's been struggling for a long time now. And we already have Keaton for Vulture, so that rounds out our Sinister Six. Let's move on to some of the human characters within the universe. I used to think J.K. Simmons could not be replaced for J. Jonah Jameson, but he's starting to get older, you know, and I don't know if it's worth bringing him back at this point. We have to consider new options. My mind would just go to JK repeatedly. I had to go to fan castings for other suggestions. Some really interesting choices I came across: Billy Bob Thornton and Robert Patrick. They could both bring really new, unique, different things to this role. But I think my number one pick would be John C. McGinley. That aggressive sarcasm is basically exactly what this actor is known for with Dr. Cox. It might not be the same as JK, but I think it would be as close as we could get. Or just get this guy. He's probably the best choice.
I need pictures of Spider-Man. Peter, get me pictures of Spider-Man. I need pictures of Spider-Man.
Then we have J. Jonah's son, John Jameson, the astronaut. Doesn't need to be a big casting, has a relatively minor role. We could just put Kellen Lutz in there. He's a good enough actor. I wouldn't say he's anything super special. He doesn't need to be a big starring role. You just need like an attractive, not quite leading man to carry that role, and I think he would fill it. Now, Norman Osborn. This one is also super tricky. This one I had put together a pretty huge list of potential candidates. I've seen so many names tossed around for this, and people want big people like John Hamm or Bryan Cranston, and I admit they could probably do a really good job with the role. But I want to bump slightly off the A list there down to like the B and go with Jason Isaacs. He's an outstanding actor, and he has a look that I kind of personally would more go for. I bet you any one of them could do it, but he'll be my pick. Now, Harry Osborn. This one is tough. It's hard because I don't know a lot of young actors, and it's also hard because if they bring him in as the Green Goblin, I don't want it to be in like the second movie. I want it to be somewhere in like the fourth or fifth, and by that time the actor is going to be like 30-something. So going from a minor to a major role, it's hard to predict who's going to fit that well. Some people said Freddie Highmore or Ben Rosenfield. Either one of those sounded pretty good. I would maybe lean towards Ben. I think my final pick would be Callan McAuliffe. He has this look that's kind of equal part cool confidence, equal part super punchable. I think that might work. For Robbie Robertson, the editor at the Daily Bugle, my top choice would be Lenny James. I went through a few choices, but I landed on that one pretty confidently. I don't know how they're going to handle the relationships with this version of Spider-Man. Is he going to end up dating this version of MJ or Betty Brant? Are they eventually going to bring in Gwen Stacy? I don't really know where they're building here and how many relationships they want the audience to burn through. And why does the girl they're calling Betty Brant look identical to Gwen Stacy? Every other superhero that we ever see just falls in love with one person right away and sticks with that partner. I would kind of like to see Spider-Man go through some breakups and various relationships and struggle with that. Spider-Man's relatable. That's a very human thing. It's a very high school thing, so it could work well. When they bring in Gwen Stacy, I think Nicola Peltz would be a good pick. If we're gonna have Gwen Stacy, we probably want Captain Stacy. And I've been convinced through various fan casting lists that Scott Bakula would be a great choice. A couple more random villains, the Rhino. I appreciate what Paul Giamatti tried to do with the character, but really he should just be a mindless goon who's very strong and very hard to stop. Get Conan Stevens, just get a big hulking badass in there to just run around and smash things. The Lizard, I'm much more interested in the doctor, actor, person side of the Lizard than I am the actual villain. There's opportunity for some really compelling duality stuff there, and I was convinced through various fan castings that Simon Baker would be the way to go. Although I did see one person recommend John Cusack, and I thought that was a very inspired choice. I liked the thought behind that one. One of my favorites as a kid, mostly because I think I just liked the design and I had a really cool toy of it, was Hobgoblin. And there was a lot of different ways you could go with that as well, and easily the standout for me was Charlton Copley. As soon as I heard that, I was sold. I would love to see that so much. That would be so awesome. We already covered Eddie Brock, Venom. Let's look at two other symbiotes. There's like 6 or 7 or 8, or I don't know. There's a shitload of symbiotes. We don't want to cover them all. Carnage. Incredibly hard to cast. I thought there would be like 1 or 2 strong choices. No, there's so many different ways you could go with this, but I want this person to just let loose. I want them to be so batshit crazy that it's just terrifying. A well-done Carnage could be like Heath Ledger's Joker, you know, it could really be a huge standout character. A lot of people recommended Aaron Paul here. I thought that could have been interesting. That's originally the list he was on, but he was never my top choice. Some more obscure lists had people like Andrew Scott or Ben Foster. I really did like either one of those. That could be cool. They both can have a little bit of a crazy edge to them. The more common names were Jackie Earle Haley or Joseph Gilgun. I can see them being more likely to cut loose, push it that extra bit further, be really batshit. But my number one inarguable choice of who I think would be the scariest motherfucker to possibly play Carnage is Stephen Ogg, who really made a name for himself in Grand Theft Auto 5 by being the craziest character anyone had ever met. My next favorite symbiote was actually Scream. I had a really cool trading card of her back in the day that I just thought was so badass. She appears so infrequently in Spider-Man related things that I would love to see Scream done really well. She didn't even appear that often on many fan castings, but 2 or 3 of the ones I saw had Charlotte Heigl. Well, I would push it a little bit different of a direction, and I would like to see Allison Williams in the role. She can obviously play a villain, and there would definitely be some depth there with her as an actress. Let's keep the ball rolling on some of the female castings here, but move a little bit more into like the hero, anti-hero territory. We can do Black Cat and Silver Sable. I don't know if they're commonly a team or if that's some shit that Sony made up. Everyone kept saying Mila Kunis for Black Cat, and one person actually said Allison Williams. Me picking her for Scream was me kind of pillaging that choice of an actress for a different character. My top choice is Lily Collins. Nothing against Mila, but I feel like I could already picture exactly what her take on the character would be, and I think Lily would do something a little bit more interesting. And for Silver Sable, someone suggested Sienna Miller, and I would for sure go ahead with that. Spider-Woman, if they ever decided to bring in Jessica Drew, if they ever went that direction, which that would be awesome if they did. I hope someday they do. I hope Tom and the rest of them stick around for like 10 movies and they have the opportunity to explore all this. That would be awesome, and I would put Alexia Fast in that role. Let's round it out with a couple rapid-fire smatterings of villains. If you decide to bring in Bullseye, I would go with Jason Statham, an undeniable badass, and it would be cool to see him in a superhero movie. Puma, who I always thought was super cool. I'm pretty sure I had a game with Puma in it, and I fell in love with him as a character. I would go with Martin Sensmeer. I don't have a lot to go on with this guy, but he had a very small role in The Magnificent Seven, and he was a huge standout in that role. The Chameleon, I thought Aidan Gillen would be a pretty cool choice, but Jeffrey Donovan was on like everyone's top fan casting thing, so I would go with Jeffrey Donovan. If you decide to bring in Smythe, I don't know if you would bring in his dad or if you go straight to like the Spider Slayer version of the character or how you incorporate that. I don't know. I only ever knew him from the cartoon as the guy with the car-sized wheelchair that seemed really inconvenient. It was like driving around a desk and he followed around Kingpin. Put Joe Anderson in that role. I think he could be cool. Depending how weird we want to get with the characters, we could have Morbius, the living vampire. I would put Viggo Mortensen there. I think that would be a cool pick. Just trying to envision that. His method acting, do you think he would drink people's blood maybe? There's only one way to find out. Tombstone would be Ron Perlman. There's no arguing that. That's just who it would be. This list could go on endlessly with B and C villains and characters that Spider-Man has. There's so many. So I think a much funnier way to end this list was I went and looked up a list of the lamest and worst characters and villains from Spider-Man, and I'm gonna go ahead and cast 5 people off of that list. But to be clear, just because these characters are a joke, I'm still gonna take the casting seriously. Top of the list was this guy Typeface, who as far as I can tell is a glorified vandal. I think they should make it Tobey Maguire. I don't know about Andrew Garfield, but at least Tobey needs to show up in these movies at some point, and something this stupid would be perfect. There's this villain called the Walrus. Basically what I can tell is that he doesn't get cold because he's kind of fat. He is kind of a little bit more strong than the average person, and he's good at crosswords. He's very much meant to be a joke character, and so I think it would be funny to have someone like Zach Galifianakis in there. And the Walrus's arch nemesis is actually Frogman, who's a guy who wants desperately to be Spider-Man's like sidekick. He wants to work together. He's another comic relief character. The short amount of him I saw, he was also pretty flamboyant and over the top, so I would go with Billy Eichner. There's this really campy character called the Hypno Hustler. who like hypnotizes people with his guitar. People say that he was really campy in a time when the comics were kind of trying to move away from that. It would be a funny, stupid little one-off. Lenny Kravitz does a bit of acting. I think it would be funny to throw him in a role like that. But my number one favorite lame-ass Spider-Man character that I came across was 100% without a doubt Paste Pot Pete. One, that's just the best name of all time, and two, his ability is that he has a really powerful glue gun. He just shoots really sticky glue everywhere, and then people get kind of like, God, my fingers are kind of a little bit stuck together. This is gonna take hours to pull apart. He's just a hilariously crappy villain with the best name. And now I can freely admit that the reason I didn't put Bryan Cranston as Norman Osborn is because he was destined to be Paste Pot Pete. It's undeniable. Seriously though, let's put a cap on this list. There's also a million other characters. There's so many hero villain characters in the Spider-Man universe that are really important story-wise. This video could have been 3 times longer or whatever if we wanted to tie all that stuff in, and I just had to cut it off somewhere. That's honestly like more expansive than I was planning on this list being. There's just so many Spider-Man characters and so many villains, and then it starts getting me all caught up in like, well, which villain should we see in Spider-Man 2? Should it be like Mysterio and seeing Scorpion finally? And then number 3, we have like Mysterio, Scorpion, Vulture, and bring in Kingpin from Daredevil or something. Like, it just gets me all excited about all the different places this could go. I just love it so much, how many characters Spider-Man has. God damn you, Sony, don't take this away from us. When I did the other 2 fan casting videos, it was largely just for my own sake. It was something that had been stirring around in my head a lot. I got really excited about the idea. I was just nerding out really hard and put those videos together. I thought like 50 people would see them. I'd share them with some friends. We'd have a little discussion. Like thousands of people have watched those and we've had tons of people pouring in with comments and stuff of their own choices, which they approved of and disapproved and everything. And that's like completely what I wanted. That was like the dream scenario for me, was to have that many people commenting on it and reacting to it and everything. So thank you guys so much for your support with those videos. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one as well. Maybe I'll carry on. Maybe I'll do a DC one or something specifically for like Fantastic Four villains, or who knows which ways we could stretch it. It might be something I return to more than just these 3 videos. I included as much as I felt that I possibly could that was, worth including. You guys will have to let me know which ones you liked and disliked. Feed me some of your own fan castings. I very much enjoy reading those. Maybe I'll do more fan castings in the future. I'm not positive if I will. I didn't think I would do this one though, so who really knows? Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.